Well, that was a fun couple of days, wasn't it? Welcome back to the channel, everyone. First off, I've been sick, as you can tell probably. Today's the first day I've wanted to get back to work, but the truth is I can't tell if I'm still, contagious. So I figured I would make phone calls, do what I can without actually shaking people's hands and risking them catching whatever this nonsense is. Honestly, it reminds me a lot of COVID. I had it once, and this was nowhere near as bad. Thank the Lord I was able to make my way through it, and so I've spent the last few days, obviously recuperating, but also paying attention to all of this political hullabaloo, if you will, in the background. And I have many things to say, and unfortunately, most of them are not necessarily what people want to hear, because it feels like, on the surface, empirically, perhaps something we'll tangibly be able to see in our hands here not long from now, that we won. We won big. In fact, this was so much winning all at once. It's kind of it's unbelievable, let's be honest. All the nonsense and the shenanigans, let's say, in the background, again, that managed to happen in the middle of the night last round, and all the ways in which the rules were twisted and tainted so as to bring about this last 4 years of overt nonsense. It all seemed to be right in line with the perfect setup to bring this new this reborn administration back to the fore. I am not surprised. I, again, don't claim to be a prophet, but for those of us who are paying attention, that understand that peace and safety is going to be one of the rallying cries, in fact, the main rallying cry during the tribulation. The fact that Antichrist is riding a white horse, pictured as a hero in Revelation, as it goes out conquering. The fact that Daniel twice makes mention that Antichrist comes to power during times of great prosperity and manages, to basically fool the masses into, this is my perception, but I don't really see it unfolding any other way, but the situation on the ground, especially in the West, specifically Mystery Babylon and all of its benefactors, I'm talking about basically all the Western nations that have been looking to us as an example to follow. Which is really funny, because the moment we found out he won, a whole bunch of westernized European nations, the West at large, even though it wasn't portrayed specifically on mainstream media, the overall tone and tenor was one of great satisfaction amongst the general populations, the original populations of most of these countries. People can make it a race thing, whatever. I'm just going to call it like it is and see it like it is, that these nations have been tired of being stepped on and being sold a false leftist bill of, unfortunately, disastrous goods that have led to all kinds of inflation and, overt taxation and extreme expansion of government, all these things that we all know deep down in our heart of hearts. I'm talking about Christians, conservative-minded Christians, that our government's been on the wrong path for a long time, regardless of who's been in charge. And it just so happens that all of the promises that are being made by this soon to be instilled, I should say, not installed, but voted in democratically, however you want to see it, administration, the one of Trump and all of his so-called superheroes, I guess the political avengers, if you will, it all seems on the surface to be exactly what we've been clamoring for. I heard Trump speaking about wanting to cut back government. I mean, I think we all know in our heart of hearts that they've been doing things unreasonably. In my opinion, I believe it was 100% intentional, so as to scare us into this particular corner, so that we would eventually lash out and accept someone who makes all the promises that he makes. And I can't say on the surface that I am A, surprised, or B, empirically on the ground, take faith aside, against it. However, the tone and tenor of the Antichrist platform is echoing ever so gently, in a kind, sweet, almost attractive way. Let's be honest. This is a really tough test for those of us who are trying to leave Christ first in our hearts, no matter what happens. The moment he won, in fact, I saw so many people get on their knees and thank God. And as far as the short term, get out of communism, get away from extreme government expansion. In fact, hopefully, I mean, let's be honest, we all hope that the government gets slashed dramatically, because it's just a drain on the American people. It's a yoke that has been placed upon us again, so as to eventually put us into this corner to where we, I don't want to say overreact, but react in such a way that it is absolutely in Satan's favor. And I know there's still a lot of folks out there that are holding out hope that this is from God, and I don't disagree that this isn't part of God's plan. It absolutely is. But I disagree that politics has ever been God's method of instilling morality and faithfulness on earth. That's never been the case, in fact. We don't have anything other than the exact opposite example all throughout the Bible, if we're being completely honest, which a lot of us are not being honest in this regard. Let's be fair. Yesterday, I saw that Trump is planning on a 250-year year-long celebration that starts in the middle of the year next year. Somewhere he mentioned the Iowa State Fairgrounds, which totally makes sense considering how that used to be a locale for the country to get together and celebrate patriotism and you know, instill a patriotic fervor among whatever side of the politics. Because again, it used to not be quite like this. And I'm only 40, so I don't have the broadest view of how things have been consistently in the States. But I do know when I was younger, you know, Democrats and Republicans could go shopping and not want to like spit on each other like they do today. Now, that being said, it's quite obvious that the right has a stronger connection to morality. They're not willing to outright condemn them. That being said, with as much as the whining, with as much of the whining and whinging that's going on online, it's really hard not to have a little bit of, enjoyment. Schadenfreude, I guess is what it's called in German. But the feeling of seeing the beginnings of retribution that comes from so many years, again, of these people overtly supporting overtly evil people. That doesn't mean that the other side is good, but it does mean that we're being corralled into such a position so as to actually, well, we've created a bunch of idols. One of the major idols that is being strengthened right now to a significant degree is the political one that suggests that we can somehow regulate abortion into oblivion. And I am 100% against it. First off, I believe if Christ were king the way that he should be in people's hearts, even for those who are unbelievers, at least at some point in history, they had a great respect for the moral understructure that built this country, at least so supposedly did. And I say supposedly because our very first president was a 33rd degree Mason. And most people don't like to acknowledge these things. They like to believe in fairy tales about, you know, cherry trees, wooden teeth, and you know, him being like the most infallible leader we've ever had and the ultimate patriot, etc., yada yada. I seriously doubt that most of what we've been told about history is true, because it's always been written by the victor, and Satan's been the kingdom, the leader of the kingdom here, the prince of the power of the air, as it's called in the Bible by Christ. Well, ever since man decided to start sinning, they gave themselves over to a certain amount of rule, and that rule will not end until Christ returns. So I proffered the question to somebody in the comments who just cannot help but, you know, basically try to jam politics down our throat as if it's a Christian responsibility to get on the right side of history, so on. But this person will certainly not be able to answer that if, in fact, all of these people who worship this idea that we can politically control people's interpersonal lives and their sin natures, not that we can't suppress it, we certainly can. But my point is what happens if the Antichrist, Trump, and all of those, not Trump is the Antichrist, I'm saying the Antichrist to come after Trump, but that, you know, Trump and all of those who come after him, because I'm still firmly convinced that Trump is a sort of Elijah or John the Baptist for Antichrist, that if the Antichrist were to support, you know, an abortion ban and somehow be a part of making that happen, or somehow increase the political fervor to a point to where it can actually be a reality on the ground, that people would worship that and completely throw themselves behind Antichrist just because he made one of their major idols come true. And again, that doesn't mean that it's wrong in and of itself. It's just we should be reaching out through Christ, not through politics and not through divisiveness and derisiveness. And that's exactly what we have been conned into thinking is the only way to get it done. And I'll point out that the Nicolaitans that are mentioned in Revelation 2 and 3, they were a group of Gnostics that believed that the voice of the people was the power of God, or the voice of God. That somehow when a mass of people get together and make, well, a firm political statement, that somehow that's God speaking through them. And unfortunately, the power in numbers, the safety in numbers has always been a effective tool of Satan to, again, hoard those that may be faithful into basically abandoning their faith for for a solution on the ground. There are many faith tests that are coming along with this, but when I see something like a 250-year celebration that's going to go on for a year, that's going to be at one of the most renowned sites of, let's say, get-togetherism. I'm talking about those fairgrounds and this fair that's going to go on solid for a year. The potential of that particular type of gathering being a mass draw to a significant portion of our population, that leaves us kind of wide open for some bad actors to come in and create another situation that's reminiscent of 9/11. Trump has promised no new wars, and I think on the ground, if there were to be no negative reverberation from some of the choices of removing all the illegals, perhaps that's not a likely scenario that we should look forward to. But unfortunately, there are 7 leaders in Rome, the northern portion of Rome, that are going to rise that resemble Antichrist. And they're in fact 7 of those 10 horns on that beast in Revelation that specifically are put in power, it says, for 1 hour for the tribulation, specifically so as to give their power over to Antichrist. So you can, I think, see the picture. Hopefully you're following. I'm trying to make sense. I'm still not 100%, but you can see how if all of these actors get together and expel the vast majority of illegal and perhaps non-patriotic immigrants that have come into, let's say, Europe, and they're pushed back into their third world countries that have been destroyed by this, let's be completely honest, this megalomaniacal beast-like soon-to-be Mystery Babylon of a country that we live in that has been oppressing them for so long, that there's going to be an extreme negative overreaction. Not to mention, and I've mentioned this a few times, the Temple Mount being stolen, because it will happen very shortly. There will be a serious uprising, if you will, on the part of the messianic fanatics who do not believe in Christ, but believe their Christ is coming, that they already see the Temple Mount as rightfully theirs. So I think the mix of mass deportations, both in the United States and Europe, and the stealing of the Temple Mount, and the, let's be completely honest, the utter support that the Trump administration will show Israel for doing this particular act, committing this particular act, these are very, very, in my opinion, these are very good, unfortunately, very good reasons for the terroristic minded of those massive unbeliever populations of, in this case, mostly Muslims. They'll have every reason after this occurs to basically unleash an unbridled attack against us. And of course, all the powers that be can see these things happening on the ground, and there's a certain amount of allowance that would have to occur, much the same way that we can look back and say that 9/11 should have never happened. Our government should have been way ahead of it, because we even had the ability to keep track of these things before it ever happened before. And I'm not going to get into the conspiratorial nonsense about all that, but it's quite clear, if we look back, that there are enough questions that were never answered about that particular scenario that our government, if they weren't directly involved, they were aware of it, and they had the ability to stop it. And I think that we're going to see 9/11 2.0. It's probably going to be, unfortunately, an order of magnitude greater than the original 9/11 attacks. And it's probably going to be such that Trump will have such widespread support, both left and right, because of the threat to safety here on the ground. Because again, once the good times get rolling and the lefties that really can't stand him start to realize that their economic situation is going to improve dramatically, they will, much like they did President George Bush in 2004, throw themselves behind him like crazy. Because remember, that was also the only other time that a Republican in the last 50, 60, 70 years, whatever, won the popular vote. That doesn't mean that they all threw themselves behind him. He was clearly not being set up to be the Trump-like figure that Trump clearly is. But that doesn't mean we're not going to see, again, another wave of this, only the reaction is going to be even more so in favor of this particular administration's reaction of, we have to defend ourselves, we need to go to war, we need to do something about this, Israel is in danger, we're in danger, we've been attacked. All it's going to do is set the pitch that much higher in favor of the Antichrist having all ability to step out of the shadows onto the scene and be widely accepted, because he's going to have a lot of things to say that, again, just like Trump, empirically seem to be spot on and exactly what we need. Unfortunately, again, all of these things represent Egypt. This is the same thing as going back to Egypt in our hearts. It is not being put together by God. And those that are convinced of it, you have a serious problem with idol worship when it comes to your politicians. Right now, many who watch this channel already, I think, have a grand understanding of this, but I think even watching this is going to upset many of you because, again, you're feeling like you're winning. You're feeling like you just got a massive uptick in what seems to be God's blessing here on the ground, or perhaps an answer to your prayers, when really it's, I think, not too difficult to see how this is a grand ploy to make sure that you are ripe for the pickings, especially when it comes to the great apostasy that is literally just around the corner. I hoped in a way that he wouldn't win, not because I don't want the blessings of, financial freedom, the ability to afford, just basic things like food and fuel. I mean, I've got 9 children, 8 at home, and I mean, I do whatever I can to do the right thing, to take care of them, and this really has been a ton of work. But the reality is, and I don't like being right about this, but it just so happens that this is the case on the ground, that the side that we run to politically is also the same exact side that could perfectly be used against us when the time comes. And it's becoming clearer by the day that not only is that 2026 fall approximate start date of the tribulation more solidly fixed in my mind, I hate to say it, but it better be yours as well. This is a call to faithfulness. This is not a call to politics. This is a call to sobriety. This is a call to reason. This is a call to understand that everything that's happening before us is a false hope. And for everything he can claim that Jesus Christ is his God, he is friends with all the exact same people of all the other evil so-called regimes that have been running this country for the last, 150 years. I don't think it's possible for him, with the people that he is politically in bed with, for him to not be a bad guy. That being said, just like Deuteronomy 13, when somebody comes along and makes promises about things and they seem to be exactly coming true as they originally supposed, once there is a turning of once there is a turn in faith from the one it came from the false prophet or the false leader, and they say, let's go after other gods, let's look in different directions, let's entertain this false idea that there might be aliens and all these other nonsense things that are just around the corner. Let's be completely honest. Trump has already insinuated aliens, so has Elon Musk. And Elon Musk, owning the most popular and most used source of news over the last year, and now I think perhaps forever, from here on out, forever meaning until Christ returns, I am more and more convinced that he is the false prophet day by day. I couldn't believe how many times he said, the prophecy's coming true, look, another one, I got it. And how many other rich billionaires got up and said, never vote against him, never bet against him, the guy is always right. This is a perfect storm, the most perfect storm I think Satan has ever come up with. And it's a culmination of 6,000 years of watching man and being able to watch their reactions to things and psychologically manipulate us in such a way through our own sin natures that it's just, this is fancy. This is peak art. I don't know how else to put it. But many are going to see this as a sign from God. They're going to put themselves further and further into idolization of politics and the power of the people, and they're going to firmly ground themselves in not trusting the Lord over what they see with their own eyes, even though we're told completely. Remember, Matthew 24, Mark 13, the apostles start with the question, when will be your coming and what will be the signs? And the very first thing the Lord says is, watch out that no one deceives you, that you do not be deceived. And it's for a very good reason. This is turning out to be the strongest of brews that I could have ever imagined to drag down as many wayward, weak, lukewarm, and worldly Christians as possible. And the reality is, the mass majority who are watching this happen, not necessarily this video, but everything that's happening on the ground, who are Christians now, are unfortunately doomed to fall for it. And we need to be those that fight against this. And I'm sorry I didn't have anything biblical directly to say, but hopefully you can understand the verses and the spirit of the Bible that I'm speaking of, because I think it's quite clear. Peace and safety is the rallying cry of Antichrist, and when people are most subsumed into that thinking, everything is going to fall upon them like a trap. And it's because the formerly believing at that time will have bought into the lie, and they will love it. And we can't be like that. I'm going to stop my rambling now. I hope you guys are doing well. Keep praying. Enjoy the good times, but don't let it suck you in, because everything that the world gives us now is not only nothing compared to eternity, but it's quite shameful, because what you guys are about to see once this tribulation kicks off, very, very short time from now, I would say right at 2 years, it's going to be the twilight zone. People are going to follow en masse, and we need to be ready to stand firm no matter what happens. Bless you guys. I really hope that you're staying sober-minded out there in spite of all of this so-called winning, and may the Lord stay with you, and may you stay with the Lord.